All right. Well, good evening. We're here at the online Zoom session for the Crawford County Community Development Block Grant Program. My name is David Zach. I'm here with my friend Rick Smith. We are too strong and mighty to talk about the county's Community Development Block Grant, and I'm happy to share with you, Rick, kind of give you an overview of the program and anybody else who's going to watch this video. So with that, we are going to dive in. Just got to get mine. Okay. So this is kind of the agenda. I'm going to start by talking about why I'm giving this presentation. What do we at the Crawford Partnership? Who am I? Why are we kind of involved with this county program? And then we're going to, I'm going to give an overview of the CDBG program. Again, I say those letters really fast. The government loves their alphabet soup. C for community, D for development, B for block, and G for grant program. I'll give an overview of that program. Then we're going to talk about national objectives, and that'll become clear after I talk about the program. All CDBG money needs to meet one of these national objectives. So they're important to kind of give a quick overview. I'm going to give examples, concrete examples of what kinds of things you can do with this money. I'm going to talk about the 5 different pots of available funding and their funding cycles and how all that works. We're going to talk about what past activities since 2015 have been funded through the program to give some where the rubber meets the road for Crawford County. I'm going to talk about some of the general program requirements, talk about the process. So 10 slides in and out, and go kind of easy. So let me start with me. Again, I'm David Zach. I'm president and CEO. I run the Crawford Partnership for Education and Economic Development. We have been around since 2006. And we were, at the time, Crawford County was one of only 4 counties in Ohio out of 88 that didn't have an economic development organization. And so community leaders got together and said, hey, we got a lot of community problems. We think we need an organization that can do economic development and work on community development, work on other things to improve the community. So that's why we've been around since then, trying to lead economic, community, and workforce development. We got into this program. This program has been around a long time, including in Crawford County. And previously, this program has been administered or managed by out-of-town consultants, all good folks, know a lot of them. Great Lakes Community Action Partnership, Ohio Regional Development Coalition, that kind of specialize in handling these federal grant programs. The reason is because they're complicated. A lot of paperwork, a lot of regulations. And so the county government, who gets some set-aside money, and I'll talk about that, has to have someone to manage it. And so they did a competitive RFP a number of weeks ago, and they asked us to put a proposal in. I've run Community Development Block Grant Program in other communities that I've been in. I've been doing economic development, community development this is my 27th year doing this thing. I'm about a year on the job here in Crawford County, thrilled to be here. But we won the contract with the county to manage the program. And one of the reasons that we did, I think, is that we are local. We are in Crawford County. I'm meeting with Washington and Crestline and Gallion and Bucyrus, and I was at the Township Trustees Association meeting, and we're doing this online. I want to get the word out there. I want to simplify it, make it understandable, not only so that people can access or have ideas about these projects, but we want to find out about what everybody's thinking. So even if we can't fund it through this program, we might have other tools in the toolkit. We might know whether it's the Community Foundation for Crawford County or Ohio Department of Transportation, some of their grant programs, whatever the case is, we're aware of a lot of different funding sources. And so even if we can't solve it through this particular program or the 5 programs that I'm going to talk about tonight, the 5 pots of money in the Community Development Block Grant Program, we might be able to help you. And so that's why we're doing it. I think that engagement is a big competitive advantage because we're here. We're very vested in making sure we get the biggest bang for our buck and making sure that we get as many community development projects done as possible. So that's why I'm here. And this is part of the federally required citizen participation process. Actually, all they require is you do 1 public hearing. We did it at the county, but we were at Bucyrus City Council, Gallion City Council, Crestline Village Council, and then Washington Village Council. I spoke very, very briefly at the Township Trustees, and we're doing this online meeting. So I'm accessible. People can contact me. I'll have my stuff at the end. And if you go to buildcrawford.org, I'll have this presentation. There's already other presentations, and almost everything I'm going to say you can download from one of the other presentations that I've already given at buildcrawford.org. It forwards to a page on our website that just has all this information. So we're trying to make it easy, make it transparent, easy to find. So that's why we're here. That's why I'm doing this. So with that being said, let's dig into the program that we're here to talk about tonight. Okay, so Community Development Block Grant Program. So the heart of Community Development Block Grant is really how do you help those who are of low to moderate income, those folks who are a little less fortunate. Federal government's been in that business a long time. And how do you create jobs for people? How do you have people have decent housing? How do you just improve the environment? And so they've always had these programs. And in 1974, they took 8 different federal programs, and they consolidated that funding that they gave to states, cities, and counties. They consolidated into one program, and they called it the Community Development Block Grant Program. And so they said, okay, we're gonna fund all kinds of different things. We're gonna fund infrastructure, we're gonna fund housing, economic development, and we're gonna fund quality of life projects. And we're gonna all put in this kind of umbrella program called Community Development Block Grant. And they did that in 1974. One of the thoughts behind it was that, before 1974, those 8 different programs, it was kind of the Fed saying, hey, these are the kind of projects you need to do. And so they changed the program to say, okay, we want you, the locals, to determine what you think you need and to figure out what you need. As long as you meet some national objectives, you can check a box on what the spirit of why we're giving you this money. If you can, it's really doing it for the purpose. We're going to give you some flexibility to determine what projects you should do and not tell you what projects you should do as the federal government. I think that's kind of a good change. In 1974, since then, they've given away about $150 billion. The total amount of money that they've given away every year has declined over time. They started out giving about adjusted for inflation, $10 billion, and now they are at about $3 to $4 billion, but it's not insignificant. It does make a difference. It still is administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and there's 2 ways to get at this money. One, you can be a big city or big enough. Columbus, Cleveland, even cities like Lima, Toledo, and others can go directly to the federal government and say, okay, here's our plan, this is how we want to spend the money. And the federal government they are what's called entitled to get money directly from the federal government. Crawford County and all the municipalities in it are not big enough. So they say to Crawford County, okay, and all the cities like us and counties like us, they say, we're going to give the money to the state of Ohio, and they're going to manage it for us. The state of Ohio submits a big plan for millions of dollars, and then we get to go apply to the state for that program. So we're really, in order to access this federal money, we go to the state. And that's the basics of the program. So we're going to get into the details of how the money works, but it's basically federal money that the feds give to the state for rural counties like ours that we can use and go after. So going to the next slide. Okay, so national objectives. So I said that this money was flexible, but you have to check one of 3 boxes. These boxes are called national objectives. And you'll see in this slide, right under national objectives, it says low/mod. That's short for low to moderate income. These are folks that are making, households that are making 80% or under, the area median outcome. Slum and blight, so you have empty vacant houses that are, falling apart and don't look good. How do you get rid of those? Or you got historic buildings downtown that are falling apart. How do you fix those up? So if you can reduce slum and blight, just buildings don't look good, that helps about quality of life. And then last, urgent need. And I kind of translate that as natural disaster. If you have a building that for example, catches on fire and then the fire's out, but it's close to collapsing, that's an urgent need. Or you got a tornado that whips through. We had floods. I remember, I've been doing this a long time. In certain parts of Ohio, even though they're getting emergency, if you got some kind of natural disaster, you got an urgent need, something that's come up all of a sudden. There are no real urgent needs right now. So we have to check one of the first two boxes with every CD project that CDBG is involved with. One is low to moderate income and slum and blight. Slum and blight is easy to kind of understand. It's like either we need to demo buildings, get rid of them because they're an eyesore. So that's like housing empty vacant housing, or it could be a commercial building, could be a vacant school, or renovating buildings, right? Putting them into productive use. That's kind of the slum and blight category. Low to moderate. So if you can check that box and you're accomplishing that, you can go after money. Low to moderate income. So low to moderate income is where you're going to be benefiting folks with low to moderate income, and you can do it in multiple ways. The first is that the area in which you're doing the project is a area where more than 51% of the people living there are part of are qualifies low to moderate income. And there are census data. They use American Community Survey data, the most recent data available, like 2015 to 2019. They did these surveys, and it's kind of like, okay, that's the income data that they use. For example, the whole city of Bucyrus is LMI, short for low to moderate income. So any project you do in the city of Bucyrus, you can do, and you're hitting low to moderate income. And then city of Galleon, same way, etc. The cool thing about this, and I'm happy we got someone else coming, so that's great. The other thing about this is that, you know, the federal government, the census chops up. Welcome to the, I almost want to say podcast, but welcome to the presentation. We will, I'll kind of recap a little bit for you. Welcome. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And can you identify yourself? Would you be willing to do that?
Yes, my name is Elena Fox.
And are you representing, are you a citizen? Are you representing a nonprofit or a government
I'm
agency?
a citizen and a volunteer for a nonprofit.
Excellent. May I ask which one?
Yes, NAMI of Marion and Crawford counties.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry I'm late.
No worries. So I'm going to give you in 60 seconds what I've been telling my friend Rick here, and this is a federal program that been around since 1974. We won the contract to manage it on behalf of the county, and when they made this program, they wanted the locals to have a lot of flexibility in how they use the money. But you have to, we're on this part of the presentation where it's national objective, you have to check a box. So even though you have flexibility, you got to check one of these boxes in order to use the money.
Correct.
And right now we talked about urgent need, which is kind of natural disaster or raging fire or something. We don't really have that box we can check with projects. Slum and blight is like housing that's vacant and, you know, really an eyesore, empty buildings, that kind of thing. And we're really talking about low to moderate income. So any project that you want to fund, community development project that you want to fund with, you know, infrastructure, quality of life, et cetera, anything that you want to fund, you have to check one of these boxes. So we were just into what qualifies as we'll be able to check we're impacting positively folks with low to moderate income. So the federal government chops up geography into chunks. So you have something that's called a place, like a city or a county. We are a census designated place, and then they chop it into smaller pieces like that are called tracts. So there are 10 tracts in Crawford County, and then those tracts are divided into block groups, and you got blocks. The cool thing about the feds in the state is they say, look, anywhere you can jerry rig it, you can use whatever. So if a project is in a particular census block, community development block grant, you can find that the smallest little area, if that area is 51% LMI, you can use it. If it isn't, but the block group is, you can use that. If the block group isn't, but the tract is 51% LMI, you can use that. In the case of Galleon and Bucyrus, if you have a whole place, all of Crawford County isn't, but Galleon and Bucyrus are, you can count that. So one of the things that we do when we take in all this information about projects and are qualifying them is we look to see, okay, which of these boxes can we check? So is it in a place where we can figure out a way to do low to moderate income? And that is what is called area benefit. It's benefiting the folks in the area. However, that's not the only way you can check the low to moderate income box. The second way is called limited clientele. So limited clientele are like certain groups are presupposed by the feds to be low to moderate income. This includes seniors. So anything done at a senior center qualifies because it's benefiting seniors, even if you're in an area that has no lot of low to moderate income people, just because by definition, the feds say seniors are a specific group, and they're like 8 classes. It includes those with severe developmental disabilities. It includes the homeless. It includes a number of other groups where if you're benefiting those kind of folks, special limited clientele, even if you're in an area that isn't 51% or more low to moderate income households, you can do it. Housing and jobs. I am not talking tonight about community development block grant housing projects or housing money programs that will fund housing. There are programs. The state has them in separate pots of money. For example, they have a program called CHIP, which is the Community Housing Improvement Program. They also do low-income housing tax credits through what's called the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. We're not talking about that tonight. We're also not talking about their economic development programs where they can put money towards loans towards companies to buy equipment or grants towards infrastructure that a company might need in order, I need a bigger road to my plant. We're not talking about those tonight, but they're on this list because if you're doing housing, that's going to benefit low to moderate income people, even if it's not in a low to moderate income area, or you're going to create, you're going to do, you know, in the case of economic development programs, and I feel like I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I apologize. I'm not trying to make it more complex, but if you're going to hire more than 51% low to moderate income, like you make a commitment as a company, again, you then can check the box. But housing and jobs, I'm not really talking about that tonight. We're really talking just about infrastructure projects, quality of life projects, those kinds of things tonight. So those are the national objectives. Again, any project we do in Crawford County that's going to be eligible for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant money, has to check either the low and moderate income box or the slum and blight box, because there really isn't any urgent need as defined by the feds right now. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Talk about national objectives. So let's talk about examples of what kinds of things you can do with the pots of money I'm talking tonight. As I told you, we're not talking about helping companies create jobs, and we're not talking about housing. We are talking about infrastructure, all fair game. So water lines, water plants, sewer lines, sewer plants, water treatment, storm sewer, road work, sidewalks, anything that has to do with ADA accessibility, which could be doors into a building. It could be the sidewalk, ramps, anything that would help. That's another, limited clientele, the handicapped. So you're going to automatically be able to check the box with that. Slum and blight, building demo, building rehab, housing, vacant housing, vacant schools, vacant commercial buildings that you either need to take down because they're just a complete eyesore, and maybe even a little dangerous, or rehabilitate in use. Public facilities, a lot of CDBG projects, parks, fair game, recreation, senior centers, community centers, domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, food pantries, fire protection equipment. So one of the things that we're asking people is just tell us what you're thinking of doing. And I'll talk about how you can tell us what you're thinking of doing. And one of the things, was it Alina or Elena? I'm sorry.
It's Elena.
Thanks, Elena. So one of the things I said is, even if we can't fund it through this program, tell us what you're working on, because we have access to other funding that we can try to help you with. So that's one of the things is, yeah, so just submit, hey, we'd like to do this. We're trying to inventory all the projects people would like to do. And then I talked about housing. Awesome. So I'll tell you how to do that as we go along. But housing and economic development are things we're not talking about tonight, but I have them up here because technically they're eligible for community development block grant money. Okay.
Right. So with NAMI, Marion, and Crawford counties, one of our dreams here in the future, and some of the things we're looking for projects to develop and to do are like day drop-in centers for those that have mental health conditions, who are trying to build job skills, who maybe definitely probably fall into that low to middle or low income SES, the socioeconomic, struggling people. These centers typically give them activities to do and programs and other things for other local agencies to participate in as well, and gives them an opportunity to maybe learn some job skills, to look toward re-entering the job force if they're interested in doing that, if they've been disabled by their mental health condition. And it also just gives them a place to be seen and heard as an adult and a human being, and to have support and access to other services and information, and to get them out into the community more. So those kinds of centers already exist as little like coffee houses in several larger cities. and NAMI chapters and affiliates are helping to establish those individuals with the very services I just mentioned. So that's something that we'd love to dream up for our county, because there's just nothing like it around for them to do. So, even if we start here in Crawford County and build it, small, so that we can do it in Marion as well, we'd love to do that. But that's kind of what our dream is, and what I'm kind of listening in for, to find out that kind of information. I do
Okay.
work for the county public health department, and I do a little bit of grant work, so I am familiar with it. And my sister has also written many grants and helped to follow through with those, and doing submission on deliverables and all of that is something I'm familiar with. So thanks so
Awesome.
much for doing this presentation. I really appreciate the information you're giving us to go forward with.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to, after the fact, it's kind of like with Rick, this isn't going to be the beginning of a dialogue. So I'm looking forward to hearing more and figuring out how we can help you, as well as what Rick's thinking about doing. Cool. So let me dive back in. Let me share with both of you kind of what we're thinking, what 5 pots of money I'm able to talk about tonight. And as you're aware, since you write grants, Elena, that there's tons of money, there's a lot of money out there, but it's like scholarships for kids, right? There's a lot of money, but it's all got all these requirements and it's special uses. So let me talk about the 5 pieces of funding I'm talking about tonight. So one is something called allocation. So the reason why we're here tonight is because of the allocation. So the state sets aside, based on population, a certain amount of money. I think of it like an allowance that is just set aside for Crawford County projects. So Crawford County every 2 years gets $220,000. We take admin, the county takes a little admin. We work with another firm to help us with paperwork. So it's like three of us splitting 20%. So there's like a little under 200,000 for projects. We can do up to 2 projects on a 2-year cycle, so every 2 years. And we will be submitting an application June 14th, and I'll talk about how that process works, how we select projects in a little bit. But that's basically money nobody else has access to except for Crawford County, and the Crawford County commissioners will be selecting the projects, and then we will be putting in an application on their behalf, filling out the application, gathering all the paperwork, doing all the things we need to do, submitting it to the state, and running the admin on that. So that's called allocation, CDBG allocation. And it's like the set aside money for Crawford County. And all the other communities that aren't big enough to get it directly from the feds all have an allocation from the state. So we'll apply to the state. That's one pot of money. Not a huge amount of money, but my philosophy, every dollar helps. And so any money we can get that we, taxpayers in our county don't have to spend, or we can get more projects done, impact more people more positively, we're gonna make sure we don't leave any money on the table. Second, so that's the pots of money 2 through 5 are competitive statewide grant programs. So that means that Crawford County is eligible to apply. None of the ones that get direct money from the feds can apply for these other 4 programs. So it's only the ones that have to go to the state because they're not big enough. So it's competitive, but we're not competing against Lima, Toledo, Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, or bigger cities in Ohio. We are able to, we're just competing against other folks like us. And that's what these 4 pots of money are. I can tell you that Crawford County has received competitive money in the past. In previous communities I've been in where we've run community development block grant program, we have gone and won hundreds of thousands of dollars of other money. So it's not outside the realm of imagination to get these funds. It takes work and it takes, you gotta figure it out right, but we are happy to work on these. So I'm going to start with critical infrastructure. That's number 2. And so critical infrastructure is, make sure I'm not, okay. So critical infrastructure is for road, water, sewer, basically infrastructure. Now, in order to get money for critical infrastructure, you need to have an engineer say that whatever you're looking to do is failing or failed for this statewide competitive program. So if you got a bridge that looks like it's going to fail soon, or the road's failing, or the water plant's on its last leg, or it's just not working anymore, or you got a water line that's busted or about ready to collapse, and you got an engineer that said this is failing or failed, you can get up to $500,000. This money happens every year, unlike the set aside, which is every 2 years. This money happens every year, and a lot of times they don't use it all when it goes live. So the state fiscal year all this money, this is federal money, but the state financial year, all the money comes available July 1. So it's not like a traditional calendar year. So everything, all the money becomes available typically July 1. So in this case, July 1 is when the new money is available for critical infrastructure. And if they don't find enough eligible projects, they'll do a second round in the winter, and you can go after the money. So if we had a project that would qualify for critical infrastructure in this county, we would start gearing up to submit an application probably for the December, January cycle. And that would be our strategy. Number 3, residential public infrastructure, affectionately known as RPIG, Residential Public Infrastructure Grant Program, is just for water sewer, up to $750,000, also annual cycle, which means you can apply every year as opposed to every 2 years. The deal with this is that there has to be a documented health hazard, like the EPA, you're under EPA orders. Think, lead in the water's not safe. This is just for water and sewer. We got to fix this. NPDES, other kind of federal or state environmental, documented health hazard, both anecdotally and by some kind of authority. So it's kind of a high bar, but up to $750,000. Number 4, neighborhood revitalization is interesting. So they used to have a program called downtown revitalization, which was really, went for a lot of facades to fix up the facades in the downtown. But neighborhood revitalization is, they're really interested in looking at one neighborhood in a community. And if it's a smaller community, maybe that's the community because it's not too big. I think some villages that are that way, or a particular part of town. And it can fund a number of different projects. So you can get up to $750,000 to fund a bunch of different projects. But they really want the citizens to determine, the residents to determine what the needs are. And so you really have to do an extensive kind of resident engagement process, which takes like a year to do. So what we're looking for as we start to talk about what Rick's dreams are, what your dreams are, what your projects are, what other people want to do, and we start, maybe there's going to be some things that coalesce that don't need to get done right away, where you say, wow, there's a number of different projects that seem to be really interesting in this part of this town or in this little village or whatever. Maybe we want to start thinking about neighborhood revitalization and begin to gear up the process to get everything that we need to apply for the next cycle. This is every 2-year cycle. So if you got a project that needs to be done soon, it ain't going to happen. But we would, if we were doing this is up to $750,000, we would do it for the next cycle. So we would gear it up. All of 2024 would be about, let's do our citizen engagement, right? Or even starting it this year to really, get everything that we need and then be able to apply when it becomes available. So it's a pretty intensive program, but a good program. And so we would love to identify potential parts of the county where we might be able to start working on this and gearing up to win $750,000. I would love nothing better. So we're hoping to maybe, ferret out some interesting things. And then last but not least, flexible grant program used to be called targets of opportunity. So basically, if something meets a national objective and it isn't fit in one of these other programs, then you go apply to the state. There is no cycle. This is rolling. So anytime you have something, the state's going to ask a question in addition to, does it meet a national objective? They're going to ask, why can't you use one of the other programs? If you have a good answer for why you can't use one of the other programs, then it's very possible to use this. There's no published policy on how much money they will give through the flexible grant program, but practice and other awards kind of, $250,000, so $250,000 is not unusual, up to $500,000. Common projects are, for example, getting, demoing large buildings. So if you do an allocation and set aside, like we're talking here for, 176, if you got a big school, you got a big industrial building and you can't use it, or let's say it's a year after that, we need to do it now, we're out of the allocation cycle. That's another good reason you can go for a flexible grant program, but there are other uses as well. So it's kind of like always kind of there if you have a project that really is kind of, good. I will say overall, there are no match requirements for any of this money, but when you're going statewide competitive, to be competitive with other communities, you want to try to, if you can have 1-to-1 that's nice, right? It gets you more competitive. So, but it's not required. So the state doesn't want that to be a stopping point for getting access to these funds. Okay, so that's a lot of info on available funding. Now I'm going to talk about what has Crawford County gotten. So we've gotten, we're talking 1.3 million or so, million, so 1.2 million, 1.3 million. 2015, they used to go every year instead of every other year. So they got money to demo a building and provide some transportation services. I think it was either LMI, I think it was seniors actually. And then in 2017, they saved their money from 16, so they had 100. Then in 2017, they went every 2 years, so they had 220, so they had like 300K. And then they went out and got a competitive $300,000 grant. And that was to do the Galleon downtown facade. So that was kind of, think of that like neighborhood revitalization. We're going to revitalize the downtown's neighborhood, but it was just for downtowns. And so they got $300,000 to do that. The other projects you'll see, Galleon Demo, that was the Neff Market. That's the building at the top of the Neff Market. And then you see the historic uptown got those for the buildings. But they did sewer extension out in Crestline that year. They got 7 people, I think, in Osceola on better septic because they couldn't, it was failing, so they needed help with that. 2019, we got the traditional. This is allocation money in 19 and 21. They did Crestline sidewalks and Bucyrus sidewalks. And I think they did 2 in Bucyrus and 1 in Crestline. Paid for most of that work, 76,000 here and 50,000 here and that. And they put in some of those ADA ramps along with the sidewalks. And then 2021, they were going to do something out in Chatfield and then we're going to do something in Galleon, but it kind of fell through because, and I don't know because I wasn't managing the program, but because those projects weren't able to move forward, it ended up going to a project to help with this building that used to be an assisted living facility in town. It's going to be a joint facility that will be eventually owned by the Salvation Army, but also the Marion Crawford Adam H. Board is there to provide services, basically in a service low to moderate income individuals with a variety of services, whether it's by the Salvation Army or Adam H. So that's where that money's going for the last round, the 2021. This is the 2023 round. Okay, round in third base and coming home. Okay, so past projects, talk about program requirements. So I have the first one here, I have an asterisk. When there's an asterisk, it's not entirely accurate or it's not entirely the whole truth, it's the truth. Technically, any project where the work has to get, if there's like construction or anything, has to get completed by August 31st of 2025. But when we're looking at projects to compete with, really, it would be great if someone said, yeah, we want to get it done. We want to do it in 2024. We'll get it done in 2024. So if there are any delays or any issues, we're kind of fine. But, I want to be very clear as I'm talking about it, that if there was a way to be really sure. So when the county commissioners are picking projects, so one of the questions that was asked at the county commission public hearing was how the county commissioner is going to pick which projects. And really they're looking to, they can do up to 2. So if they can do 2 projects, that would be great. There's some sensitivity to spreading the money around, right? So they don't want to just put it all in one place. And they want to make sure projects are ready to go and will happen. So that's where that timing goes in. So if we have something that somebody's ready to go in 2024, that's a little bit of advantage when being evaluated. This assumes, of course, that these are eligible projects. So that's the first one. Second thing is Davis-Bacon prevailing wages apply. So if there's any construction, prevailing wage apply, which are the federal rates for paying, people on construction, plumbers, pipe fitters, all the different construction jobs get paid a minimum amount, and that's the prevailing wage amount. So one of the things we do as a grant administrator is we will go out there on site and do labor surveys. We will talk to the people actually doing the construction, make them fill out a form of what they're getting paid, which is how the feds want us to document that they are getting paid prevailing wage. So that's part of that big paperwork that we gotta handle. But if there is construction, there will be Davis-Bacon prevailing wages paid, and we work with the contractors to make sure they understand that. They bid on doing the work and all that. A lot of regular, Elena, I'm sure you're familiar with doing grants. There's a lot of regular reporting and documentation that we take on. including but not limited to, we're also handling the fair housing program now for the county as part of this. Requires to have a fair housing program, so we're taking that on as well. Citizen participation, we're doing that here and multiple other locations. And then there are some general guidelines to the county, but I should have put an asterisk on this because you can ask for a waiver of these two requirements. And if you have good reason for doing it, you're likely to get it. One is that as far as how the money is going to be allocated, we don't have a huge bunch of money, but they'd like to see at least half of it if you're choosing between LMI, low to moderate income, and slum and blight. If you can, they'd like, as a rule, they'd like if you can use at least half of it for LMI, but that's only, they only have that guideline in because the state has like a guideline from the feds and the plan they submit, I think it's like 70 or 75% has to be LMI, but overall, they usually meet their requirements. So if you said, okay, I want to tear down a building and it's not LMI, but it's how I want to use my 176,000, it'd be like, okay. So, and then because other communities are using all their money that's for LMI, so it kind of works out in the wash. But again, I'm just communicating with you what they tell us. And then planning. So you can do planning work. A couple years ago, they did some work to do what's called fair housing impediment study. I love their big $20 words. But impediments just mean what are the obstacles people get in fair housing, getting affordable housing. And so they did a study on that and they paid for it with community development block grant funds. But if you want to do a big plan, comprehensive plan, community development plan, and you ask for a waiver, the communities could get it. So those are some of the requirements. We got one more slide before you get, there's a slide with my contact information on it. But I will say also at the end, all of this is at build as in build a bear, build a community, buildcrawford.org. I said Bill Crawford. Some of them thought I was talking about somebody's name, Bill Crawford. I don't know who Bill Crawford is, but they're like, no, it's buildcrawford.org/site. Okay, so last slide of importance, and that is the process. So this is a quick process. So we just, as soon as we won the contract, we launched into action. So if we get this in 2 years, which I'm planning on doing this a long time, that our organization would handle CDBG, we'll be a little earlier on the next thing. So we're kind of, we've launched it. We're doing things like this, trying to get people out there. So even if it doesn't qualify for this or this round, submit all the stuff you want to do, and we're going to strategize with you on how to get it done. So learn about the program. We have the official legal public hearing on the 11th, and then tonight is the 13th. So these are kind of open, and we had all these other meetings as well. What we're trying to do is work with assess community needs. So we have kind of two forms. I'm not a big fan of paperwork, but they're kind of like whiteboards on paper, like people share what you're looking. We got one that's a community needs questionnaire. It basically says, here, community or nonprofit, what are your water needs? What are your sewer needs? What are your road needs? Just give me what you're trying to improve. What about community centers, senior centers, parks and rec, and it's basically the 17 questions are like just the different categories, just write it in. You can fill it. We got an online form at buildcrawford.org. I'm also going to send all this stuff out to everybody who's been at our meeting if I have your information. But again, everything is there. So I'm trying to get just a sense where even if they don't have a budget, what the Christmas list, I call it the Christmas list. What's your wish list? We like, Elena saying, I'd like to do a day drop-in center with, folks, that'd be great. We love that. So that's the idea. And here it is. So, but that's like also a project. So project proposals is not as detailed as it may sound. So I have a 10-question questionnaire, one question, which is contact information. It basically says, what's your project? Where do you have it picked out where it's going to be? How much is it going to cost? And do you have like document? Do you have like a quote? How do you know how much it's going to cost? Do you have any other money towards the project? Like if you get this money, will you be able to complete it? Where do you stand with the money? Who's going to benefit? Those kind of things. So it's really not designed. And then if you got anything else you want to email us, we'll process it. But it's basically, I want to get people's ideas with what's now to get a quick sense. And then I'm going to work with everyone on, okay, we got a project, where are we at? Obviously for this round of set aside, we want to have projects that have been defined, but we know not all the ideas that are coming in are going to have budgets and have all that stuff. That's okay. We're going to work with you. But we're looking for project proposals by May, because basically at the beginning of the May, commissioners have to make their decision, because it's going to take a month with the other firm that I work with, because I'm contracting with someone to help us with the paperwork, because we don't have a dedicated person right now working on this stuff, but we hope by the end of the year to have a person just working on community development. So I'm doing all this. So I got someone help me out. We'll gather all the specifics. That's like getting the, all the documentation that we're going to need to get the money. It'll take a month to get all that information, get it in the state's complicated computer system, and submit the application. We will submit the application by July 14th. That's the deadline. But the county commissioners are gonna, we're gonna take those proposals in. Hopefully, the earlier the better. We're gonna be evaluating them on whether they're eligible as we go for the set aside, and then also strategizing on the other pots of money as well as other money. And then once those are selected, we're going to do another public hearing on the 16th at the county, and which we're going to announce the projects that are selected. Now, why are we doing it on May 16th when we're submitting an application on the 14th? And the reason is that if there's some reason to change, we need to do another public hearing, which is a 10-day notice. So we're giving ourselves enough time to make a change if we need to make a change. And put another project in, or there's new information that comes to light. So we have enough built in to make a change if we need to make a change in what projects, something happens. So we got enough time built in to make sure we don't leave any money on the table. So that's what's called the second public hearing. That's legally required, and that basically, this is what projects the county has selected. Now, during the whole process, if anybody has any concerns or questions, you can reach out to me personally. I have my contact information. I'm going to go over there right now. And that's my cell phone. That is my email, but on Bill Duggar, you can also send it to, we have a general partnership email. It's fine. Wherever it is, we're going to respond as soon as we, as soon as possible. I think we have 10 days, but we're going to respond a whole lot quicker than that to try to answer questions. And again, if you can't, sometimes the email is real difficult. Text me, call me. I'll try to get back to you. Rick's coming in the office. He's rather like, hey, here's my project. So whenever we're going to try to work with you, but have patience with me, since I'm a one-man band, like with the accordion and the cymbals right now, as we're working it. So that's kind of the story of the program. Again, the 5 different pots of money, but I'm excited to that people are coming forward and saying, hey, I got some things we want to do that are going to, whether it's housing and road, into a housing project to make it viable, which is what I think Rick's thinking about, and Elena's thinking about this drop-in center. I think both are great. What I will say as I wrap up is that go ahead and zip me your contact information. Elena, Rick, I think I have yours. But and if you want to go ahead, and I think we got information from Rick too. So the form that's online, that's called a project proposal form. You could just, you could submit the same information in an email or write it out. It doesn't need to be in that form. That's just a way of making it easier. It's like, I got a Word document you can download with boxes you can just type in, or an online form that's like an online survey where it goes to SurveyMonkey and you just fill out the same information, hit submit. Whatever's easier. So Elena, you have it. I would recommend you have a specific project in mind. So I would do a project proposal, even if you don't have a budget yet, because you're thinking, but if you have an idea what it costs elsewhere, or if you just want to describe what it would need, how much space you would need, what it would look like. Do you have a location that you've already identified, or we need to find a place, what the requirements are? Anything you can just kind of dump. If you have something else written, you just want to send me something you already have. You don't have to take all that information and put in my form. My form is just trying to make it easier for people, not make it harder. However you want to get me that information is fine. We don't want to make, we're not trying to eliminate people by making it complicated. We're trying to figure out ways to figure out what you want to do. And for this program, figure out if it's eligible, then have the commissioners rack and stack so we can use the money. But separate from that, this is really a launching pad for our new effort to do comprehensive community development in Crawford County, which means us intentionally trying to support nonprofits and governments and the private sector when they're going to benefit the public, do projects. We want to get more than our fair share of grant money. We want to get more than our fair share of projects. At the end of the day, it's going to create a better quality of life. Okay, I'm going to take a breath, be quiet. So let me ask Elena before we leave and turn to Rick's project. Do you have details about what this looks like? Or is this, hey, we'd like a center, we don't have any location picked out, we don't know what it's gonna cost. So is this an idea at this point? Like, we know we want to do it, or do you have like some numbers and a location picked out? So where are you in the process?
Right now we're in the very beginning phases. So yeah, this is something that we foresee in the near future. And so we don't have the numbers crunched or anything like
Yeah,
that.
and that's
We're
that's
in a,
fine.
yeah, we're in a really good build phase.
Okay,
We have an executive director that's just started with us about 6 months, a little more than that ago, and
okay,
building some great momentum. I'm sure you'll be seeing some invitations to our annual meeting coming up in May. I don't know
awesome.
that you'll be able to make it
Okay.
because it'll be May 16th, unfortunately. But
That's my anniversary, by the way. That'll be a year I'll be
Aw.
in the job.
well, happy anniversary.
Thank
We're glad to
you.
have you here in the community, and we're
I
really
appreciate it.
looking forward to some of these things that we can do to help our citizens. And so this gives me some hope, and I think that we can start crunching some numbers and putting this on our agenda for the next fiscal year to get
Cool.
going.
So
Yeah.
what I would love for you to do is send me an email, Elena.
Will do.
And just describe what you were talking about, so I can have it in
Mhm.
writing, because you know this inside and out, and
Yes,
I
I
don't
do.
want to. And then I'll put you on the list. I'm going to start creating a list of people that are working on stuff. So we'll start putting out information on different grants and different stuff.
Okay.
So we'll start staying connected, and then I'll put it in our database, and we'll start working on it. I will also say that my intention is to start a process in the fall, and a 2-year process where we get a big stakeholder group together. We take these projects, we take project ideas, and we start prioritizing them and seeing where the needs are and are any ready to go, of getting the whole community ready. Remember when ARPA money came? So the federal, that there was a bunch of money that came, and if you had projects ready to go on the shelf that were kind of developed and we knew what they were going to cost, you could go after the money. So I want to position us where we have projects, we know what they cost, we know what we want to do, we have all the documents, we know how to package it. You're a grant writer, you know what I'm saying, right? So
Yes,
it's like
I
we
do.
want to get them
Yeah.
ready to go, so that when the money becomes available, as it becomes available, we are competitively positioned to go after that money. So I'm excited to meet you. I'm excited about your project. Send me an email and/or additional information on what you're thinking. Again, just kind of what you did, just do it in writing so I can kind of have it. And we'll put it on our
Sure.
database and we'll start working together.
Yeah, I'll also copy Jennifer Jeanette. She's our executive
Awesome.
director. And
Okay.
I believe Lisa has probably been attending some of the community resource center or community resource commission or coalition. It's coalition meetings that we've had at the health department recently. So I think that, yeah, we've got some exciting things building and going on. So
Cool.
it'll be a good process. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Rick, let's turn to you. Do I remember correctly that we're talking road into residential housing? Is that what am I remembering this correctly when someone was
That
sharing
is
this with me?
correct. It's
Okay.
an R1 zoning,
It's what? I'm sorry, what about zoning?
R1 zoning,
Okay, and this is in the city of Bucyrus?
correct.
Okay. And what kind of housing?
Well, there actually can be condos built on one side of the street, and the rest of it would probably be more than likely single family homes.
Okay,